Woo! The Golden Stallion, the Man of Tomorrow, Savzu, the Rated R Radio Star, here for a little Wednesday Q&A. A little bit of a late night one, but fuck, I was busy, baby. Playing a little Super Mario World with the hottest woman on the planet. Woo, you better believe it. The lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. She and I, we were rocking it in the Forest of Illusions. Couldn't find that secret level to get to part 5 of the Forest of Illusions. Finally found it. Fucking then I died. That's how it goes. But, hey. No, really. If people knew... I used to have, I have so many monikers. I list off a shit ton of them at the beginning of every episode. If people only knew, okay, and I'm not saying hard work is a virtue, all right, but if people only knew, like I used to use the one that was the hardest working man in anarchism. If you had any idea, look, I'm not just going to start going down the list and pat myself in the back. I don't need to do that shit. Okay, but jeez, oh Jesus, Satan. Anyway, we've got a lot of questions, some fun ones. Going to get into some tech in this one. I know last week we started off with a little philosophy, but this one I think we can start off with some tech. But actually, I want to start off with something. I want to start off with a nice comment that was very kindly made in the secret Facebook group, Sovereign Tech Uncensored. Whoa, ding! Hey, just got another patron just while I'm recording. Fuck yeah, baby. We're going to take this. We're taking it all. Actually, looks like this one's an egoist. All right on, baby. So, okay. Like I was just about to say. Anyway, the person said, all right, says, I'm slowly working on expanding the mind of my boyfriend and decided to start him with Sash and Sovereign Tech. Sash, of course, being Sex and Science Hour, which I do with the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, baby. So I show him pics of Brian and Stephanie, and he says, wow, he looks huge, and I love how he swears. I'd fuck him. Good job, Brian. Keep being huge. Woo! I love it. Look, I am absolutely a dilettante in the arts of the profane. Make no mistake about that. If I'm anything, I'm that. All right. But getting to the level, or the degree of panache with which that I like to think that I can cuss. Yeah, I've been working on that for a real long time. Pardon me while I have a sip of tea. I know some of you guys hate this stuff. Woo! Mm-mm. How you doing tonight? All right. All right, let's really, anyway, thank you. I'm honored by that. I love it. I don't know how many times it's actually happened. Not that this is the case with that comment. I don't know how many times now it's happened. It's at least happened twice, I think, where somebody, and this is kind of bad form. You really don't want to be looking at other people's screens, but a couple emailed me, and they met because I think the guy was listening, or maybe it was the gal, was listening to Sovereign Tech. And they noticed that they were listening to Sovereign Tech, maybe on the SoundCloud page or something. I don't exactly remember. This was a couple years ago. And they started chatting it up because they were both fans. Can you believe that? Meeting up at a coffee shop and meeting another Sovereign Tech fan. Holy shit. I know that's happened also with other people recently. I don't know how many times this has happened. But me? That blows my fucking mind. All right. I mean, it's awesome, but blows my mind. All right. Let's get shop talk. Let's get into the questions because we got quite a few to get into. Actually, a quick one that I want to touch on before I get it. We're going to talk about VPNs here. Actually, a great question about VPNs in a second. Might get into a little Bcash talk as well. Yeah, looking at you, Roger Ver. He says he hates it when he says you're just a jerk if you call it Bcash. No, I'm not. Well, all right, maybe I am. Maybe I can be to some people, but come on. Okay. Anyway, let me get to this quick question first. And this is also actually from the Sovereign Tech Uncensored Facebook group, which if you want to join, by the way, all you have to do is you have to friend me, private message me, and then I can let you in. That's what it takes. Anyway. It said, Brian Sovereign, just curious if you think Twitter will ever have groups, and if they did, would you consider moving this group to Twitter? Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, so I've briefly mentioned this, and I mentioned it again when when Twitter brought up that they were for some users they were allowing for a 280 character limit instead of 140 character limit, which again I think is fine. People ask me all the time about that now, and I'm like, oh well, why the fuck not? I mean, and this will kind of answer this person's question. Like what Twitter's been doing for the past really ever since Jack Dorsey came back as CEO, they've just been slowly implementing every Facebook feature that they can, or at least formatting feature. Fortunately, they're not going too crazy with some of the Facebook features because Facebook is such a complex fucking system now. It's so terrible what they offer. But a lot of the overall fun stuff and UI and things like this, I mean, like your profile page looks like, a Facebook timeline now. I mean, people might already forget that it didn't always look this way. But certainly Facebook has done its fair share of copying some of Twitter's features to varying degrees of success. Like with hashtags, it's not a fucking success at all. But yeah, I really think it's a matter of time. And I think Twitter, with some of the features that they've already rolled out, they have been, they've been testing out would people actually make use of groups. Like the fact that in a direct message on Twitter, you could effectively create a group. You just couldn't thread it, right? You don't have threading, but otherwise you could have a bunch of people in a direct message and, only those people invited to that direct message are able to use it. So that's kind of a group. That's why every time I've brought it up, I said, look, if Twitter ever came out with groups, I would kill my Facebook account in a heartbeat, and I would absolutely move the entire Sovereign Tech Uncensored group. I'd move it all right over to Twitter, just like that. I mean, it'd happen in a second. But I always caveat that with, don't tell me about direct messages. I know about that. That's not the same. What the feature needs to have really is threading. So yeah, I think personally, I think it's only a matter of time before Twitter does implement groups, or maybe even some kind of like subtweet feature, which I think would be, and expect these things to come up because you got quarterly reports, yearly reports coming up, and the piper's got to get paid. You have to make sure that your investors are happy, and the general way that you make investors happy is just by announcing, oh yeah, we've got this new feature, and if it's something really impressive on the UI, it usually impresses the VCs and the investors and all that. So that's commonplace. So this would be an easy thing to do, to either create groups or create like a sub Twitter, kind of like a subreddit, but instead have it be a sub Twitter where people can only interact within that. Either of those features, and that would be enough for me to move everything over to that. I'd be totally game for it. The threading thing is the important part. Some people recommended switching over the Sovereign Tech Uncensored group to Reddit, which is not a terrible idea at all. And I've still been considering it, and Reddit does allow for threading. One of my favorite pieces of software out there is Riot.im, Riot.im. Riot.im is great, and they keep coming out with new features, and it's great encryption. It's completely open source. It has video calling, its chat feature works more or less like IRC. And it has most of the features of IRC, like private rooms and all this different stuff. The one thing it doesn't really have, as far as I could tell, unless there's been something added in the past week, which I know there was a major update to the mobile apps of Riot.im on Android and iOS. But as far as I know, like, you really can't do threading on that, and that's the hard part. And threading, if you don't know, is just a person makes a post and then you can comment only on that post, and it doesn't affect the rest of, say, the chat room or group or something like that, which is the lifeblood of Facebook is threading. Yeah, I mean, Riot.im, I've toyed and will continue to toy with that, because the nice thing about Riot is that, and I've talked about this before, I know I talked about it at PorcFest as well, I had people ask about it. The nice thing about it is that, yeah, it has that baked-in encryption. It is completely open source. Like, it does everything right. It just needs that fucking threading feature, and then I think it would be it'd pretty much be the perfect social platform. Telegram would be a great thing as well, but again, it doesn't have that threading. That's the whole gaff, is you've got to be able to have that threading. I think I think Riot even has search within, which is, one of the reasons that people don't use IRC so much, or maybe even Skype anymore, is because they don't have search within chats, which is why Slack became so popular. It's kind of been, Slack is already considered a killer app, but Slack's killer app has been the fact that you can search, within a group. A Sovereign Tech group is certainly, Slack group is something that could be, but I hate Slack so much, I'm not going to do that. Like that's something where there is a degree of threading, and you could create separate, rooms and everything within a Slack channel. I could see a lot of interesting ways that could work, and I know about Rocket Chat. You could use Rocket Chat. There's a lot of options out there. But again, like if I'm going to take the time to try and really, really, really build up, a Sovereign Tech presence on another platform, it has to be perfect. It can't. It either has to be perfect, or it has to have a tremendous network effect already. One of those two has got to be a part of it at least. And Twitter would be an easy one, because even if people don't use Twitter, they can understand why maybe they'd need a Twitter account, because a Twitter handle is the modern day phone number, especially in the tech world. It's an easy argument, and most people already have one. They just don't use it. So anyway, but yeah, I really could see in the very near future, I could see groups coming to Twitter. And if that happens, we'll see how they implement it. And if it's got the right stuff, well, then yeah, Sovereign Tech Uncensored will move over there. So, all right, let's get on to another tech question here. We're going to get into some fun questions a little bit later on here. But, okay, hey, Brian, quick question for you. I don't recall ever hearing you discuss this on the show. Maybe it's something you could talk about. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the encryption settings for private internet access for things like torrents. I'm trying to figure out how loose a guy should be on that. I've been plagued with slow speeds and gone through everything, and finally thinking it's the encryption. I'm just not sure it's wise to change those things. I'm not sure it needs to be encrypted at all if just the IP is going to be tracked. So, okay, now the way that you can change, so I'm going to break down, we're going to go, and this is only if you're using private internet access. Some of this information would be useful across the board, would be useful for, any VPN service that you happen to be using. Okay, but anyway, so what I'm doing is that you have your little private internet access, their little droid figure guy that exists in whatever taskbar you happen to have, whatever system you're on, not just Windows. And it comes up, I'm right clicking on it right now. I'm recording this on a Windows machine. And there's connect at the top. Then there's the connect options of where, which I'll say quickly on that. For torrents, you always want to use the Netherlands server. Okay, now that might be part of the reason that you lose some speeds, but you want to use the Netherlands server just because downloading, okay, isn't so much the, shall we say, a public offense that it is in other countries. The Netherlands are particularly good about that when it comes to art. They have some very odd laws. Favorable in some ways, odd laws about art in general. So now underneath all those connections options, like I said, you want to use the Netherlands if you can. There's settings, which is what we'll be going into. Beneath that, though, there's send slow speed complaint. And this is definitely something I recommend doing if you're having a trouble with slow speeds. I imagine the person who sent this to me, I imagine is very intelligent and already did that. But that's kind of step one that you want to do is send in that slow speed complaint. And then private internet access will anonymously see what your connection system looks like. And they'll send up a little bit of encrypted data that tells them what they need to know to be able to analyze what's going on for you. So anyway, we're clicking on settings here, and then you're going to see down at the bottom, it's going to come up with your username, password, and all that. But what you want at the bottom is advanced, and you're going to click on advanced, and then we're going to run into a bunch of different things that we can do. So there's connection type, which is arguably the most important. You have UDP or TCP. Generally, you want this set for UDP. Now, if you are using this on like on a Linux machine, there are some extra options involved. So now to discuss connection types, because this might be part of the problem, this might be one of the areas, it may not necessarily be the encryption. I'm going to guess you've gone through some of these, but I'm going to describe them, and maybe there's something helpful, as we go along. So you have the option of UDP or TCP. Now for speed, you want UDP. Okay, because with TCP, what it does is that, so a connection type, you're sending data packets through this connection type, okay, on the VPN. With TCP, which is the most common connective framework of the internet in the world, what it does is it does this error correction and verification of all the network packets that you're sending out, which makes it a very reliable connection, which is part of the reason why it's so popular for the internet. UDP, on the other hand, is what they call the stateless protocol. Okay, now that doesn't mean anarchism, even though that's kind of cool, but it's what they call a stateless protocol, not meaning the state, but and the idea is that it doesn't perform that error correction and that confirmation of the data packets getting sent. So when you're using UDP, it is way eons faster than TCP. But again, you do technically lose the reliability, but I've never run into an issue. I mean, if we were talking about running like a Fortune 500 company, yeah, then there's arguments for not using UDP. But, for the individual, the everyday person, by all means use UDP. Okay, so that's the first thing to set up. The ports, not such a huge deal. Usually it's set for auto, and that's fine. Request port forwarding. Port forwarding is a whole other conversation around torrenting. That is a good idea to set up and will give you really great speeds, but it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to set that up on a router. But I'm not going to go, into that. Now, private internet access has some unique features that they offer in their client. One of them is what they call PIA MACE, which is effectively a very well done ad blocker. So what'll happen is if you have PIA MACE turned on, you will, if you were, whatever you happen to be doing, it's going to block ads. That can break some features, admittedly. There's a reason you may not want PIA MACE on, because it can break some features in certain software. Because once you turn the VPN on, technically, every piece of software, not just your web browser, every piece of software that you're, running on your computer is running through the VPN. Okay, and that's kind of the point. Then there's VPN kill switch, which, VPN kill switch, the idea is that if your VPN disconnects, it will automatically kill the internet on your computer until it can reconnect. And not a terrible feature, but again, with UDP, you don't have 100% reliability like you would with TCP. So maybe this is something that could be a problem, because most of the times you're going to have to manually, go through the reconnection process. Next are two features that are kind of the same. One is DNS leak protection, and the other is IPv6 leak protection. Now, I usually don't turn on DNS leak protection, but IPv6 leak protection, that I leave on, because that's a very real problem. Because most websites a lot of advanced websites, not most websites, a lot of advanced websites are using varying features that can potentially leak. Because the features are using IPv6, WebRTC, things like this, it could potentially leak, your IP address, where you're actually coming from, and break the encryption of the VPN. Or not break it, but leak. It'd be a leak, not a break, from your encryption. So I leave that one on, but if you're running into issues of speed, maybe you want to try turning that off. That's something else. The next option is use small packets. And using small packets, that's not something you have to have turned on. That really only matters is if you're dealing with like a particularly slower or older server or something like this, and you're running into some kind of compatibility issues with the country that you happen to be running it in. That can help speed things up a little bit, but I don't know that that's exactly what's going on there. But if you do set it for use smaller packets, that might help out with the matter. So then the next option is, what kind of encryption do you want to have set up? So across the board, private internet access is using OpenVPN as its backend. It's not using PPTP, which is a good thing. PPTP, while one could argue it's better than nothing, PPTP is like encryption so weak, it's almost not even worth it. If somebody was really targeting you, PPTP, using that protocol, just isn't going to do much for you against a really concerted attacker. Concerted effort by an attacker. So it uses OpenVPN, and that what you run into are these are some options of, and there's a specific data set that it uses. It uses AES 128, okay, for its stock encryption, and then it uses SHA-1 for authentication, and the handshake between your client, server, etc. is RSA 2048. All standard fare. This really shouldn't be, the encryption itself shouldn't be causing a problem. But here's the thing. I don't recommend turning off the encryption, and I'll explain why. One of the reasons that you want to use, a VPN is because all of that data, and if you want to use a VPN at all times, by all fucking means, use it at all times. Okay. The data that you're sending up from your computer goes to your ISP, right? During that last mile, or since that direction to be kind of the first mile, it all goes to your ISP, whoever that is, Time Warner, Comcast, whatever. Okay. And they keep a log, and legally they are either forced or just have the option of keeping a log of what you do on the internet for, I think, up to like 5 years. Okay. So, consider that almost like a criminal record being kept about you in a way. I mean, because potentially, anything could become a crime at any given moment, right? Oh, suddenly going to, a website about Asian ass porn is bad. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah. So I don't like one of the purposes of a VPN really, in my opinion, is to have that encryption. To where the ISP isn't exactly seeing what's going on. So I really don't recommend turning that off. And it really shouldn't be causing so much of a speed issue. I guess if you've gone through all the other settings, and it's, in my opinion, also it's kind of dangerous to turn off the IPv6 leak protection, particularly that, because that can also be broken by like superbugs, especially if you're connected through to a telco like Verizon or something like that, or if it's on mobile, all of this. I don't know. I think if you turn all that off, you run into issues of a lot of shit really getting logged, even within that last mile. So that's my number one concern with that. So I would leave that running. If you haven't contacted private internet access about it, saying, hey, look, for some reason things are extremely slow. I mean, look, the Netherlands server can be slow because everybody uses the Netherlands server when they're torrenting, right? Okay. But just keep that in mind. That, maybe contact them about it, but none of those settings, like the default settings for private internet access, generally aren't an issue. If you're constantly, like, the only times I would change some of the settings, there's nothing wrong with going to SHA-256, but that is definitely gonna slow you down. And SHA-1's break is the exploit on SHA-1. That's another conversation. But if you were having constant drops, then I would set it for use small packets, and maybe even set it for TCP. You're going to run into the slowdown because of TCP, but to keep connected, the slowness is like, that's an acceptable trade-off, right? So that's my thoughts on that. I hope that answers the question as far as what you had. I can't. It's hard to believe with the default settings that I mentioned, the AES 128, SHA-1, and then the RSA 2048. If it's set for that, there shouldn't be a slowdown. But I could be, if you're experiencing it, I recommend asking private internet access about it, or just clicking. Like I said, when you click on the little icon, it will bring up the send slow speed complaint, and maybe that that'll help something happen there. So anyway, okay, let's get out of that, and let's get into another little bit of a tech topic, and then we'll get into having some fun here. Brian, if you're taking Q&A this week, I got one. I have some OG Casacious coins, which Casacious coins, for those that don't know, were these physical Bitcoins. They were just, they were like souvenirs. They were for fun. And in fact, like Roger Ver gave one a few years ago to like all the hosts of Free Talk Live and everything. I mean, it was really, now, like if anybody actually held on to them, and I don't blame them if they didn't, if anyone held on to them, and didn't, because what they would do is there's like a little holographic sticker, like a tamper-proof sticker on there that would have a private key that you could then enter into a wallet, and you could, you could extract the Bitcoins effectively. Like, I mean, so pretty much these Casacious coins were like these physical, either gold or whatever color they happen to be, like paper wallets. Effectively, okay. You didn't really set them up to add anything to them. It didn't really work that way, but they were popular for a little while because it was a way of saying to somebody, "Oh yeah, no, I have a physical Bitcoin, right?" Because that used to be one of the old arguments. It's like, well, it's not. I can't hold it in my hand. It's not real, and of course that's fucking ridiculous. But anyway, so Casacious coins used to be a very popular thing. Anyway. He says, I guess they are now worth 1 BTC and 1 BCC, as in 1 Bcash. Now there's a new fork coming, and people are saying to split out the BCC prior. I don't plan on sweeping these things anytime soon. Am I at danger of losing some value if I do nothing? Okay, so there is a fork coming. I don't see, I don't really see any... With the Casacious coins, I mean, these are like some of the first Bitcoin addresses ever made in a real way. Or not addresses, but you know what I mean. I think they're going to be compatible across the board no matter what, because people want that really, really ancient history. I know, the Bitcoin core team talked about, has talked about pruning at various points. That pruning is all for very little stuff, as to where these are worth a Bitcoin a piece. And in fact, to some degree, a little bit more than that, right? Because, because it's a physical Bitcoin, like there's a cool factor, there's a collector's factor to it. So they're worth a little bit more than that anyway. Myself, I'll tell you. So I don't think you're in any danger of losing anything, bottom line. Okay, regardless of what the conversation is that people have about it. Also, we're running into interesting times that I theorized when we first started talking about talked about Bcash on Sovereign Tech, where we could end up with 3 Bitcoins, 3 different Bitcoin teams, 3 different Bitcoin blockchains. Effectively, really, there's only one. Bcash is an altcoin. And regardless of whatever prefix or suffix you put on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still Bitcoin. That's the bottom line. Like there you have it. That's Bitcoin. Everything else, like I said, is an altcoin. And look, I'm not knocking them. Just let's keep perspective. Okay. I'm actually not being an ass. I'm just saying, let's keep this in perspective that like Bitcoin Cash is not Bitcoin. It's just not. And is it a huge philosophical and metaphysical question as to what actually is Bitcoin? Sure. And I am not the person to have that, at least not right now. Okay. But anyway, regardless of all of that. So here's my point. All right. As far as I know, you really don't have to take any kind of action as it concerns to this fork, especially if it's a wallet like that old. It's more a problem if you've been setting up other wallets, kind of post August, I guess. That's my understanding of it, but all of that's moot. I am very concerned about Casacious coins, and that in the future, one of the reasons that people never took Casacious coins too seriously is because you had to trust the distributor that they didn't keep the private keys, that it actually has on it what it has. Now, people have cashed out of these, and they've continued to cash out of these with success. So one assumes that the distributor didn't happen to look at the sticker and things like this. I mean, this is a problem with a lot of more. Like when people make fancier, where they're not paper wallets, maybe they'll cut them out of metal or something. A lot of people have the same concern about it. It's like, how do I know what's on that? Or, that they didn't keep a copy of the private key or something, that the manufacturer didn't do that. All very real concerns. I don't know. I mean, maybe the argument for keeping it as a Casacious coin and keeping the Bitcoin technically on it and not collecting the private key on it. The argument for doing that is that potentially the Casacious coin in 10 years could be worth billions as compared to one Bitcoin, let's say, only being worth $1 million. Is it possible for one Bitcoin to be worth $1 million in the future? Yes. Not really. I think that's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't know that it'll get there, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Anyway, so the idea is that, wow, Bitcoin kept on a Casacious coin, that's going to be a real collector's item. And, it's the idea of like, well, okay, so you have a troy ounce of silver, but when that troy ounce of silver has Caesar stamped on it, suddenly it becomes worth a whole lot more than just a troy ounce of silver because it has history, it has a story, it has a collectability. There's something behind it. And the Casacious coins is kind of a similar effect when it comes to coins. So, but I don't trust it myself. I don't, I wouldn't like cash out on Coinbase, my Casacious coins, but I would move those Bitcoins and I would get them, set up into like a Bitcoin Cash wallet and then do the breakdown for the coming fork, things like this. I would do all of that. That's just my opinion. What I would do. I'm not telling you what to do. I am saying that I don't necessarily trust it. And like, I want to, I want to know. That it's there's software that is far better where you really know that shit's under control. So that's my take on it. I hope that answers your question. But at the end, I don't think you're going to lose out on anything if you do nothing because of just the age of the keys for Casacious coins. Unless I'm misunderstanding something. So anyway, all right, let's move on to another question here. And here's a couple. These are a couple of fun ones that were actually asked on Twitter of all things that we were talking about. So here's the question: what fictional character or characters do you dislike the most in a TV show and or movie, and why? Oh man, there is some. I'll tell you, there is some low hanging fruit to answer this one. I mean, there's some real low hanging fruit. All right, let's go for it. The new Battlestar Galactica, the Ronald D. Moore Battlestar Galactica. Every fucking character. No, I'm kidding. I actually like Starbuck. In fact, I love the fact that they made her a woman. I thought I was so on board with that. And the picture of Katie Sackhoff, who played Starbuck, the picture of Katie Sackhoff and Dirk Benedict, who played the original, another hero of mine, who played the original Starbuck, the male version from the 1978 Galactica, the really great Galactica. The picture of those two with cigar, sitting down smoking a cigar, is one of the sexiest goddamn pictures ever taken by mankind. I mean, it's just remarkable. She's awesome. Her character was phenomenal. So not every character was bad. I also enjoyed Commander Kane, the female Commander Kane in that. I thought she was really, like that was a nice touch. Granted, she's no Lloyd Bridges, who played the male version of Commander Kane, in the 78 Galactica. But she did fine. Of course, she played Rolaren in the Next Generation and everything. Just tremendous actress. But all the other characters, I can't think of a goddamn one that I like. I didn't like Baltar. I thought he was just a pain in the fucking ass. Didn't care for Six. None of the Cylons. Didn't like Adama. Didn't like Apollo or Lee, whatever. Colonel Ty was kind of funny because all right, here's the reason that I hate all of these characters. The president on there, the whole fucking lot of them. All right, the Cylons are annoying for their own reasons. I won't necessarily break into that. The reason that I don't like the main characters in that show are because like there's no genuine heroes, but yet they all put up the facade of being heroic. Now you can say that, that's like real life politics and all that stuff. Look, I don't watch science fiction to get real life fucking politics. You understand? It's escapism. I want to get away from that. I mean, like it was season 3 of Galactica was so bad because it was so blatant that they were trying to show off the Iraqi occupation. And it's like, yeah, but this isn't, you're not being edgy. you're too open. You're too honest. Not even honest. You're just too open because they weren't being honest. You're too open about it. And it just came off cheap and it felt really stupid. But that's one of the things that, I mean, and this goes actually in even genuine heroes in a lot of movies. Okay. Even the heroes in a lot of these films, I hate the heroes. Because the heroes are always like, oh, I don't know. Should I do this? Should I do? Oh, I'm so uncertain, blah, blah, blah. As to where the villains are always like, no, you know what, motherfucker, I'm going to do it. You know, and with no questions asked. They go out there and they do it. They go after what they're going after. And I respect the hell out of that. You know, I mean, really, like I always appreciate the villains way more than I appreciate the heroes. But in Battlestar Galactica, the heroes are particularly insipid because, except for Colonel Ty, and I'll explain why Ty is kind of the exception in this. Because, again, they're all like, oh, no, I'm the good person. But they're all doing completely unethical, immoral bullshit, lying and killing and whatever else behind everybody's back. And it's all so terrible. Starbuck, not so bad. You know, like I said, Starbuck is excluded from this whole conversation. But everybody else, I hate that. There was nobody you could really rally behind. You know, and look, there are people in life that, for using a conventional phrase, that have a fantastic moral compass. They just walk around with that incredible moral compass and they don't think twice about it. And there is no reason that kind of person shouldn't have been on display in Battlestar Galactica. They should be on display somewhere at some point in all. I mean, it doesn't have to be in content, but if for something to be considered as great as Battlestar Galactica is, that really should be there. And it's not. No. That character's not there. There's no argument about it. Like that character just is not a part of Battlestar Galactica. So I hate that there's no real heroism, in that. Not really. It's all just a shit and fucking mess. And I guess maybe people like that because their lives suck or something. I don't know. Because their life is a fucking tragedy, but I don't care for it. You know, I want escapism. I want, this is a problem with so much science fiction. There is so little science fiction out there where it's hundreds of years in the future, or I know, spoiler alert, Battlestar Galactica is thousands or millions of years in the past. But there's so little science fiction that says humanity is going to be okay. And I know how the last episode of Battlestar Galactica goes. I know what happens in the last minute. That's not saying humanity is going to be okay, because they're saying that it's just going to happen again. They're like, oh, maybe it'll be this different this time. No, it fucking won't, because you people are stupid and you don't know how to write. But anyway, so yeah, there's so little science fiction out there that like actually says we'll survive. We'll make it through this. We'll get past our demons, shall we say, even though generally I like the demonic. Star Trek is a rarity. Buck Rogers is a rarity where humanity actually makes it. You know, they get past all the nuclear wars and everything. It's too rare. And I don't need, Babylon 5 is another one where just how far ahead humanity is going to get, especially when you get to the season finale for season 4. Do we really need this? Do you really need like depressing fucking bullshit like Battlestar Galactica? Oh, it's great drama. Fuck drama. Fuck drama if at the end of the day it's not about, landing on the map, landing on the country of Utopia on the map. Yeah, you're never going to reach Utopia, but you keep trying. Oh, drives me nuts. So Colonel Ty, on the other hand, from the beginning, he's morally ambiguous. He's in many ways, he's almost like he's almost a Boba. He's an anti-hero. He's like a Boba Fett character in Battlestar Galactica. And that's fine. You can have 20 of those, but you've got to have some, downright good old fashioned heroes in there as well for the anti-hero to play off. Otherwise, it's just shit. Like if it's all anti-heroes and like there's no actual villain in there, you got to have something to play off of. And look, Hollywood knows this. A lot of writers know this. It's very difficult to write from the villain's perspective. Okay. Where like, if you wanted a show to be able, or a movie, say for example, a great movie, Payback with Mel Gibson. Okay. Fuck you, Mel Gibson. But anyway, Payback with Mel Gibson. So in Payback, it's all about you're going to root for the bad guy. And of course, the way that they pull it off and is that, yeah, Mel Gibson's the bad guy, but he's got to go after a badder guy, like a, less ethical guy or something like that, who wronged him in some form or fashion. And that's the thing. Like, even when Hollywood tries to write about, from the bad guy's perspective and to try and get you to root for the bad guy, because like I said, really the bad guys are the ones that are the more, endearing characters, in my opinion. This is true. Just watch wrestling. Every good guy is meaningless without every face, as they call it in wrestling, the good guy is meaningless without the heel, which is the bad guy. Like, you got to have a great heel. That's why was Ric Flair the biggest fucking deal in wrestling for 40 years? It's because he was the perfect heel. And he could be a good guy too, but he was the perfect heel, and he'd make the good guys look so good. And he'd make them look so good that even when they lost, you felt like they kind of won, and you believed that the villain got away with all. I mean, that's great drama. Not this, everybody's a fucking anti-hero, everybody's, fucking this person behind this person and stabbing this person and all. It drives me nuts. So Colonel Ty, though, was like, from the beginning, him being morally ambiguous, towards the end of the show, particularly, or when he would start to admit it to everybody, the bullshit that he was doing. And of course, yeah, I know what happens to Colonel Ty. It made sense, and it was like, okay, but that's how the character was, and that was cool. As to where everybody else, they just fucked it up. Even like Tom Zarek had really, I loved having Richard Hatch back on the show. It could have been really cool, but then they fucked with him too. They just turned him into where, oh yeah, I'm this very principled guy. I had this troubled past as a terrorist. I mean, like, great stuff. And then suddenly, oh shit, he's, back to back stabbing and making backroom deals and all this other crap. And I can't do it. Same thing when I watched House of Cards. I can't do it. I don't need this. I don't need, like, I'll just watch politics in real life if I need this kind of shit in my life. It's not that I can't watch depressing stuff. I can really dig depressing stuff. There's lots of things that I can watch, but like, to watch the political process, there's a reason we're anarchists, because we're sick of this shit. But somehow people think, oh, well, look, it's showing the state for what it is. It's showing humanity for what it is. Fuck that. Fuck that. I'm not even a person that believes in morals. Fuck that. Man. So everybody besides Colonel Ty and Starbuck in the new Battlestar Galactica, I hate every one of them. Just hate them. And especially when you compare them to their 78 counterparts. In fact, IDW is doing a crossover comic. I'll read it. I don't want to, but I'll read it. But anyway, IDW is doing a crossover comic between the original Battlestar Galactica crew and the new Battlestar Galactica crew. And I want to see that contrast, because I want the real Commander Adama, okay, as in the Lorne Greene 1978 Commander Adama. All right, I want that Jew, yeah, Lorne Greene, baby. I want him to get in new BSG's Commander Adama's face and tell him, what the fuck is wrong with you? We need fucking heroes. That's a quote. Mine is, okay, I added in the fuck, but that's a quote from Living Legend Part 1 and 2 from the 78 Galactica. Say, we need fucking heroes, and you're fucking it up. Get the fuck out of my face. And then just have Commander Adama, the classic Commander Adama, have him say, yeah, all right, get all the laser tubes ready and everything, and just launch all Vipers and just blow these fuckers out of the water, because that's enough. Boy, I wish that would happen. Man. So yeah, those are the kind of character, and I think I explained why I don't like them. Because, I mean, yeah, I don't generally like the heroes either. Like I said, because they walk around with so much uncertainty. They're kind of, I'll use a conventional term, namby-pambies usually. Unless you're talking about like some 80s action heroes, then you don't really have that. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's my answer to that. It drives me, that show drives me so nuts. just how venerated it is when it really doesn't deserve it at all. There's nothing. Not that TV shows don't have to be edifying. It doesn't have to be anything it doesn't need to be. It's just too much. It's just too much fucking bullshit. I would rather watch Days of Our Lives or All My Children or General Hospital or Guiding Light, which I know is not anymore. I'd rather watch soap operas a million times a day than subject myself to that crap. I'll watch Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, God damn it, before I'd watch that shit. Actually, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman wasn't a bad show. Oh, Sully? Was it Sully? Was that character that was really cool? Anyway. Okay, so, which, funny that I brought that up because, of course, the woman that played, Dr. Quinn, she played she was one of the main characters in the first few episodes of the original 78 Battlestar Galactica, of course, being Jane Seymour, which, woo! Okay, so... So there, I answered that. Let's get on to another one here. Have you already reached, and again, both of these are from Twitter, have you already reached your creativity peak? And do you believe your age range will completely determine that? So, okay. Quick answer, no. In fact, I do have new issues of the Sovereign Tech newsletter coming out. Things have been, well, I don't have to go too much into all of that, but yeah, don't worry. If you're wondering where's the next issue of the Sovereign Tech newsletter, it's coming and it'll be back on a regular schedule. Anyway, so have you reached your creativity peak, and do you believe your age range will completely determine that? So age range, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, as in if you mean like as I get older and am I going to get less creative, or do you mean the fact that I really gear my content towards a mature / adult audience, that will be a problem? I'll answer both. As far as like, as I get older, will I get less creative? No, actually it'll be more, because I just know, the amount of experiences aren't going to slow down, I mean, barring some kind of, medical issue that I don't have, but like if some kind of medical thing happened, I mean, it'd be a different story, I suppose. But no, as I get older, I mean, and you see this with a lot of directors and a lot of writers and all that. I mean, like their best works, start coming out sometimes. I mean, this isn't always true, but often when they get older, because there's more experiences. I think, there's an old saying in writing that, you can only write about what you know or what you've experienced. I think that statement is largely true, which is why that statement is stuck around, or that theory, that idea is stuck around. But I think some people escape childhood with their imagination just a little more intact than many others, where that imagination can be so powerful that in many ways they can, not that they literally woo-woo live law of attraction horseshit, like live whatever they have going on, but you can simulate that experience enough with your imagination that I think you can write about it. I really think that can happen. I think that that's something that I do. Okay. I don't mean it as a boast. It's a tragedy that people don't escape with their imaginations and their childlike wonder and things like this intact, but they don't. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, or at least recapture it after, a very terrible stint in the military. But regardless, yeah, the more experiences that I have, the new ideas I get, the more creative I get. So now, as far as like the maturity thing, so with age, no, I don't think age is going to be an issue. Like I said, barring any medical conditions that could ever come up. And I'm only 36, so as far as like age range, like, am I limited in what I can do with kind of the maturity level? And I'll talk more about the creativity peak thing in a second, though this is dovetailing on it. No, like because I concentrate on mature and adult audiences, I think it's quite the opposite. I think that I have, like, the gloves are off. And with a lot of the things, particularly that I'm doing in the Sovereign universe, I've created the frameworks and, kind of the plot points, the story elements, that allow me to do pretty much anything just with the Sovereign Universe alone. And I'm not even writing, separate shit, which I'm not opposed to ever doing that, to writing stuff that isn't in the Sovereign Universe. But the Sovereign Universe is so fun and has such an interesting grip, I think, in people's minds that I don't know why I wouldn't want to write in the Sovereign Universe. And there's still so much to write. I've only, done, I haven't done that much as far as fictional sovereign tech anyway. So yeah, no, with the maturity, I mean, and understand like that I've, with people that I work with on stuff that, the voice actors, whatever else that I work with for the Sovereign Universe, like I've written some stuff where I've questioned myself and I said, all right, am I going a little too far? And, is this a little too nuts? Is this going to like really drive people away instead of turn them on or something like that? And almost across the board, every time I've sent that, I've asked those questions, it's always like, oh no, you can go further. You can, like, no, this is hot. This is amazing. I love this. And I'm so honored by that to be able to, do that. But anyway, so yeah, no, I feel quite the opposite, that, having it within that age range, gives me near limitless creativity. I love the old Harlan Ellison saying, I'm an unlimited man in a limited world. And I kind of feel that. Granted, I'm grounded within reason and logic on that, but, yeah, because no, I haven't reached my creativity peak. Not at all. Now, granted, I am somebody who, here's another statement that's true. Everything's a remix. Yes, pretty much everything's a remix. Okay. I take plot points, I take ideas, and I take things that I want stuff to, kind of turn into, from all of my favorite franchises, from all my favorite stories, all my favorite movies and whatever else. I pull from all of these different things, okay, which is exactly what George Lucas did to create Star Wars, and he admitted it. With remixing, the possibilities are nearly endless, especially when it's not just like music or it's not just a book. When you go totally multimedia, like I have with Sovereign Tech, where there's, the newsletter, there's albums, there's, fictional episodes, there's video games, there's all this stuff. When you go there, you have so many different ways to express yourself, and each medium, each venue, provides new advantages and new challenges, that really keep you going. So I think that's one of the keys. If somebody were asking me, what do I feel like one of my keys to my creativity are? Well, first off, like I said, is that I survived childhood with my imagination intact. But second, well, I guess there's maybe three. Let's do everything comes in threes, right? That's another saying that's horseshit, but whatever, I'll run with it. The second thing is that because I have the ability, and thanks to, computers, apps, software, and all this different shit, because I have the ability to create content and stories within so many different mediums, it keeps everything fresh, and it keeps my mind engaged, and all, like I said, each different format. If it's the writing short fiction for the newsletter, if it's doing a video game, if it's, making an album, whatever, they all come with, yeah, like I said, there's challenges, yes, but they all come with their unique advantages as well. And those advantages inspire new types of storytelling within it. And so, I know this is really only something that people in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years at best have been able to do. But if you can be a creator, if you can be a storyteller, a writer, whatever, but be able to use all of those different venues, you're going to write forever. You're going to tell stories forever, and you're going to create content forever, because just the very nature of the multitude of mediums that you get to use, video games, whatever, or fiction, audio plays, whatever it ends up having to be, it's just going to keep you fresh. It's going to keep you relevant. So yeah, there's no way I've peaked. I just know it. And I have, the other thing too is that, especially with Sovereign Tech, like I've met and I've worked with just some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. And I've only met them in the past, 5-6 years over that time. And each one of these people, like all the women that I work with, which I know the Sovereign Tech listeners call the Sovereign Tech Cabal, the women that generally appear in the various stories and that do the voice acting and everything. Like each one of them, Stephanie, all of them, they inspire me. I mean, you can't, like, I wish I could tell them, I wish I could thank them enough how much they inspire my creativity. All of them, Paige, MK, Ellen, there's new women who are coming on board. And each one of them, I mean, they are so inspirational to me. So when you have friends like that, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any such thing as a creative peak. I think it's kind of when you end up like a hermit and on your own that you start to lose some of your creative peak. Like I think something that happens, I'm a huge metal fan, and I've often, this is just as an analogy, as always, remember that proof by analogy isn't necessarily proof anyway. I've often wondered, like, what it looked like is that you say like 80s metal bands, okay, my favorite, talking Motley Crue, Whitesnake, these kind of guys. Now, some of these people still make great music to this day, okay, like they still got it. And part of the reason they've still got it is because, being on the road and, I guess getting their fuck on all the time and whatever, is kind of the fountain of youth. So maybe not so much being on the road, but, performing anyway. And, and all the sex and everything. I think that's part of the fountain of youth. But I always notice that with a lot of them, once they stop drinking or doing drugs, the quality, shall we say, of their work, not that they stop, but the quality of their work takes a nosedive. And I was always a little bothered by that. Not that I have a problem. I mean, it's fine. People drink, they hit up their stuff, whatever they want to put in their body, whatever they want to rock, please, by all means, you go right ahead. I am not judging at all. But I don't do any of that stuff. And so it's like, oh shit, am I missing out on some creative opportunities and all this by not doing that? And I still think about that sometimes. But that always kind of bothered me. Is like, really, is it because they cleaned up and they sobered up that they lost all of their creative juice? And I've recently come to the conclusion, I don't think that's what it is. I think what happens is, and you could see it with some of these people, because there's bands that still make it, and then there's bands that start to fall away. And the ones that have fallen away are all with these singers, or where the bands or whatever have, like, they go into kind of an isolation and they live in West Bumfuck. Like, they're not around the industry anymore. They're not around really friends anymore. And I could name names in the metal scene anyway. I could name names of people that where they stayed in the industry and where they keep in contact and they, with other bands and all this stuff. And I think it's a lot of that is that inspiration that they sort of feed off of each other that gives them a lot of their creative juices. It's not because they stopped drinking or they stopped doing drugs. I mean, that's sort of, I think, something that precipitates why they go off and live on their own somewhere. And I mean, some of them end up like in fucking trailer parks and shit, after they clean up and everything, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it's because they remove themselves from, say, the arena of ideas or the arena of creativity or whatever. And, I think that's what kills it. But for me, over the years, I mean, it just keeps coming. I mean, more people want to, more women want to work with me on all of this stuff, and that's really cool. But, the core group that I've been working with for the past at least couple of years now, some of them earlier, I mean, they're just so inspirational. I cannot thank them enough. Like and I mean, and especially Stephanie, of course. Like, I mean, she's the inspiration for fucking everything. There is no Sovereign Tech without Stephanie Murphy. Bottom line, there's no Sovereign Universe. There's none of this stuff, because she gives me. And this is another. Here's another aspect. Like I said, there's times where I ask people, hey, do you think I went too far with this? And I feel comfortable in asking them because I feel like they're people that aren't going to judge me harshly if they think something I wrote or made or whatever was, went too far. They would just say, hey, yeah, Brian, I think you went a little too far or something. But that right there, that no judgment zone where you don't get called, I don't know, perv or whatever the fuck it is. Okay. When you describe just an idea, to somebody or whatever. And when you have that, like that is where you can really foster that creativity. And I think something that happens with a lot of people, writers and others, is that they can end up in circles, not like ones, and I'll explain the difference here. They'll end up in circles, social circles, where they will be constantly judged and they will be constantly compared to their other work and all that stuff. And they become limited. Okay. Now, you're probably asking, wait a minute, you just said with the metal guys, the fact that they're not in those social circles is the reason that they lost creativity, because they're not in the social circle of musicians and all this different stuff. Here's the difference, is that with metal, it was a no judgment zone. With a lot of writers and a lot of directors and other people, it's a total judgment zone. You don't get free expression. If you try free expression, what the fuck happens? Well, you get fired from directing episode 9, or you get, whatever ends up happening to, Star Wars. But anyway, that's another story that I've talked about in other Patreons. Whatever the situation is, it's a total judgment zone. As to where in the 80s metal scene, no, it wasn't that at all. You slept with 4 women yesterday? Well, fuck, of course you did. I slept with 5. There wasn't any judgment with this kind of stuff, and so you got to have, I feel like, one of the ways that creativity can continue to get fostered is to have that social circle. And it doesn't even have to be in person, but it's so great if it is. Oh, fuck, it's so great if it is. If the person can be right there, if they're nearby, and if you ever really needed them, it's really great. But that social circle and it's a no judgment social circle. That's priceless. And I think that you can go on forever with creativity and new ideas and exciting, intellectual ventures and adventures inside and out. And more, when you have that. So that's so key. And I really can't picture, I would never do anything to lose it, and I'll protect it, every one of these people forever. So yeah, I don't think I'll ever see my creative peak. Kind of a long answer. I hope that answered what you were looking for. I think there was going to be a number 3 that I was going to mention, as far as creativity. So yeah, let me mention number 3, because I mentioned 1 and 2. Here's number 3. As far as like my, again, I escaped my childhood with my imagination intact. There's number 1. Number 2 was, having these people in my life that just, these incredible women that inspire me so much. Number 3 is I have not just imagination. I've got this, I can barely describe it. I know Herman Melville, he had a quote about this where he said something to the effect of, "I feel an everlasting itch to sail forbidden seas," meaning that there's just some sense, something inside that he felt that just made him want to explore. And it doesn't have to be physical exploration. You don't have to be Magellan or anything. It could be internal. It could be a lot of different ways. But I have, do I have that itch to explore all the time. I am always thinking about that, about exploring, inside, outside, outer space, in my own head, the bubble universe under my skull, right? And that desire that I can, it's not wanderlust, it has a purpose. It has direction. It's just uncontrollable, and it's just there, and it's always kind of pulling at me that I have to know more. I have to explore more. I have to figure out more, at all times. Yeah, that's another thing. And if you've got that, and maybe if you try to stuff it down, try fostering it. Try fostering that desire to explore and let your mind go wild. I've had people in my life, people that I've considered friends or whatever else, that might be saying it in past tense, but who have said that, my desire to explore, to go to outer space and explore outer space is insane, is crazy. I don't listen. Doesn't matter if I never end up there. I don't listen to that, because my creativity, what my desires, my goals, everything that I create and produce, bottom line, is feeding that need to explore. Now, this is a huge conversation, like where does that, because, a lot of humans feel it. I'm not unique in that desire for exploration. And I'm not talking some cheesy Star Trek shit. It's always been there. I don't know when I was never, exposed to Star Trek, but I sure as fuck, know there were points where I didn't grasp that exploration was the name of the game for Starfleet, and I thought it was just all kind of cool effects and everything, but I mean, I was always, as a kid, always running. I was pushing limits as far as where I could go, but I wanted to know so bad, what was out there. And a lot of people, I get a lot of compliments and I appreciate it on being such a voracious reader, or a lot of comments on that and everything. And it's true. It's just, and it all just comes from that desire to explore. And even my writing and my creativity and everything that I do as far as that goes is all about expressing that exploration. And it's a part of that exploration because sometimes I don't know where the story is going to necessarily end. Sometimes the story, like I'll get a very rough idea, but then what happens in between, I could come up with whole new ideas kind of in between that. And that's part of that exploration too. So, fostering imagination and the desire to explore, so important. And fostering, people in your life, social relationships, or, relationships in your life where it's a no judgment zone. Man, I think when you have those, nothing can stop you. You can go on, and you can do shit forever. You can do anything. I really do. It's, and if somebody thinks what I just said sounds cheesy, fuck you, It's how I feel about it. It's really how I feel about it. And I've had to do a lot of self-exploration, especially over the past few years. And those are some of the conclusions that I've come to. And I'm not going to stuff any of that down. I'm not going to, I have absolute confidence in what I do. And confidence in my abilities. And I'm not going to let someone, complaining about what I write, what about any of the fruits of my creative pursuits. Complain all you fucking want. Get the fuck out of my face. I know what I'm doing. I know what I want. I talked about this recently. The most important question you need to be able to answer in life is, what do I want? I can answer that question. Have I gotten everything that I want? No, but I'm still striving for that. But I at least know the answer. I know. I have that confidence. So, yeah, I won't let anybody shut down my desire for exploration. I won't let anybody shut down my imagination. And I won't let anybody, I won't let anything, harm the beautiful relationships that I have. So, anyway, went into a little bit of overtime with this one. And I got to get this baby out because you people are waiting for it. So, also, hey, happy Ada Lovelace Day, baby. Talk about a woman who, boy, look, Ada Lovelace. If you don't know about her, get to fucking know her. She is the reason we have computers, folks. And she was born, over like 150 years ago. I mean, total hedonist too. She's the best. Ada Lovelace. Happy Ada Lovelace Day, everybody. Definitely a woman worth celebrating. Talk about a Woman Crush Wednesday. Woo! Anyway, that's it for this episode. I should have more Patreon content coming out. I wanted to do my Kingsman 2 review, amongst other things that really need to be out there. And got a Dynamite Sovereign Tech lined up for you, and of course a new Sex and Science Hour. Baby, I will see you on the other side. And, well, I hope to see you as long as you keep exploring. Woo.